Alright, now that we have our gold all colored in, we can go ahead and start working on our silver. So I'm actually going to, do a little bit of cleaning up here on this side, and that'll be it. Now let's go with our silver. So as I did before, I pretty much colored this all in white, and it kind of gives off a little bit of a gray color already. So let's go ahead and get started on making some darker darks, which I will use a cool gray 20%. This looks warm for some reason. Oh well. So let me zoom in, and let's start off with the neck area. So if you look at your reference, there. If you look at your reference, just notice how the colors work. So for instance, let me see here. So for instance, here is more of like a streaky kind of style of coloring. So I'm basically going to just emulate that. So I'm going to take in my white once again as a highlight, and then kind of just draw in some streaks here, just as a little bit of a shortcut. And everything in between can be a little bit darker. So I'm actually going to be using a 50% cool gray. And I'm coloring in the edges here, just to show form once again. Everything's just to show form. And I'm going to be coloring in the inside. So far so good. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a 70% cool gray. And I'm going to be just continue to color in the streaks in a very thin manner. Because, this is kind of going away from us, we're going to put this part a little bit more in shadow. Also going to add a little bit of reinforcement of lines here, just so it doesn't, because this line is super thin, so I don't want that to be distracted and put out. You can even use the black to kind of create some extra values as well. You can do it sparingly, but enough that looks kind of neat. So that looks pretty good for now. So let's go ahead and move on to the shoulder pads, which will be the same process. So I'm going to take my white again. I'm going to look at how this was, the texture of the arm pads were for this, and it looks generally pretty smooth. So I'm just going to go with that, or I can go ahead and do something more like this, which is more reflective, or something more like this. So I think I'm going to go with something more like this in that style of coloring. Or actually, because we have the same similar texture for this, let's just go with that. So I'm going to put next to it. I'm going to make the rows have like a bit of a highlight in a vertical way, in a horizontal way. And then I'm going to take my 50% cool gray. I'm going to be coloring in the creases. I'm also going to be adding a shadow underneath the emblems. So I'm going to be doing the same thing on the other side. Add white on the highlights, usually because this is towards the front. This side will get a little bit more frontal lighting. And I'm going to be using my 50%. And I'm going to be coloring in the rest in shadow. There. And now let's go ahead and add 70% cool gray, and just add in the rest of the details. So I'm going to add also a little bit of a shadow over on top because the arm is covering on top, so I'm going to color that in really lightly, not lightly, but blend it in nicely by coloring a little bit softer as you reach the edge. So that starts to look a little bit more metallic now. Here are some darker spots. And then let's go ahead with our black here. Let me see where my one is. And I'm going to add a little bit of black along the edges here, just kind of like a little turning edge. And reinforcing these lines here because I don't want those to disappear. So that's what it looks like with the black. I'm actually going to reinforce some of these lines around these edges here because that looks a little bit like it's fading away. Alright, so that is our breastplate. Now let's go ahead and do our chest plate here, whatever it is. So once again, let's take our white. This is kind of going more in a downward streak, so I'm going to go more downward this time instead of linear. Downward instead of vertically. So where it's kind of like starting to have a round edge, you want to add a little bit of highlights. And as it starts going farther away, you can add a little bit more shadow. Now let's go ahead and add in our 50% cool gray along the edges. Also add a little bit of detail on the marks as well. So as you can see how it starts working, once you have your highlights, then you put in your darks, and so on and so forth. It kind of just repeats the cycle. Now let's go with our 70% and add some shadow underneath the breastplate or the arm, the shoulder pad, whatever it is. I don't know the terminology for armor, but I just know where it's placed. So I'm adding some shadow because this is hovering on top. And then I'm going to be adding some darks along the darker darks here, especially around the back where light is not really catching it as much. And because this is kind of like a rounded shape, I'm actually going to make this area a little bit more shaded into shadow. So I'm going to be using the side of my pencil. I'm just going to be softly coloring in the bottom half. And of course, I'm going to go with just to give it a little bit more of a punch, I'm going to go with a 70% warm gray. Just give it some extra darkness. And then I'm going to go with my black, my 01. I'm going to reinforce these lines again because they're starting to fade away. The more color you put on, the line work starts fading away, so you want to always, touch up on it. So I'm going to add some around the edges here, around these ridges here, just to kind of reinforce. I keep saying reinforce, but I don't know what other way to put it. Just to kind of bring back that detail that was lost. And that is our top part of our armor. So let me know what you guys think of this. This was pretty fun to do. Hopefully that this helped you guys with drawing armor or metallic textures. And I will see you guys in the next one. Let me just once again trace over this lightly. And yeah, anyways, that's it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.